there is a different style of leadership maybe required now, maybe a mix of leadership, a high level of trust required, and a changing time for leaders. And also they have to look after themselves as well, because a lot of leaders were working through this whole COVID, maybe while quite a lot of their staff were out on furlough. So there's that element of well-being and mindfulness. So, Helen, I won't hold you back. I'm really looking forward to the session. It's the first session, and I think we've got 6 then after this if people want to sign up, and we'll touch on that maybe before we finish up at the end of it. But I think it's very much a conversation piece today. I think you'd be looking for people to join in if they have any questions or whatever. There is a text box on the bottom of the screen, but also you can open up your microphone and ask questions as we go through the format then. So Helen, you're very welcome, and thanks again.
Brilliant. Great. Thank you very much, Paul. That's brilliant. Absolutely. We will finish at 11:45. So if you have any messages at all, if you put them in, or as Paul says, you can unmute yourselves and interrupt me at any time. So just to really kind of, I suppose, outline what we're going to cover this morning. I think, as Paul says, it's never been more important to adopt a different type of leadership in response to the workplace issues that post-COVID-19. When I say post-COVID-19, I think we're still you know, the ripple effects are still very much impacting us. So what we're going to do this morning, now this really is just, you know, a short introduction to give you a bit of a flavour. So we're going to look at authentic leadership, what it actually is, how it can work, why we need it. The aspect of authentic leadership I'm concerned with is mindfulness. So I'm going to introduce you to practical mindfulness to explain a little bit about what it is, to experience it. So I hope you're all ready and waiting, because we're going to do a couple of very short mindfulness exercises, but also to kind of look at how it can be incorporated into your work and life as a leader. And also, as Paul said there, you know, the authenticity it's about you being a leader, not just with your staff and your team, but you yourself as well, and how you manage yourself. And so this is any aspect we look at today is also outside of work as well. And then we're going to close, and I'll tell you a little bit about the 6-week authentic leadership course that's coming up as part of the Chamber's Learning Centre. And so I'll tell you a little bit about that. And then, of course, there's an opportunity for any questions at the end. But you can interrupt me throughout it as well. So maybe if we put everybody on mute, because there's a little bit of background noise, and then you can unmute yourselves. That'd be okay. Anna, can you put everyone on mute? Just to prevent any background noise. Let's see. You something. Oh, that's me too. I have to unmute myself too. Yeah. Oh, that's me. Suddenly thought. Yeah, you can hear me now. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you to do something for me for the next 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I want you to have your undivided attention. So I need you to make sure that your phones are turned off or muted or even turned around. So if you can do that, and even just give me the thumbs up that you've done that. Okay, great. Okay, see Niall's looking I've already done it. Okay, brilliant. Because again, this is all about attention. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to share the screen now, because I have a few images that I want to, as you're doing that, I have a few images I just want to show. Okay, right, so thank you very much everybody for doing that for me. So we can say that the recent pandemic has changed the world that we live in. We're very much aware of that, but it's also changed the DNA of our workplace environments. And the workplace environment, as Paul was saying, and we were chatting earlier there, it has changed to be very different for many people. So we have a whole different range of issues that come from that. We have people working from home. We have people who are still working on site. There's people blended working from home and on site. And it's creating, there's positives, of course, but it also is creating a lot of issues. And as leaders, we need to address those issues. So some of the things that I'm finding when working with clients is the lack of connection. It's the lack of boundaries if you're working from home. People are finding teams working remotely. It's very difficult to connect your team. And so this means that also it's creating a lot of anxiety for people. And what we're finding is that in the workplace, that a lot of people are in the fight or flight response. And I'm sure you've all heard of that, as the idea that when we're under pressure or when we're at a threat, we're working at a level that we're very anxious. And this is already starting to transpire, that people, there's a whole wave of people that are coming through now with mental health problems who weren't recognized as having mental health problems to begin with. So one thing I want to explain to you about this and why that is happening as well, because we have a psychological immune system, which is a bit like our physical immune system. So in that, it kicks in when there's a threat. So immediately our psychological immune system kicks in and we have these responses. We have behaviors, we have coping mechanisms that kick into place. And that's what's happened when COVID hit. And as leaders, everybody kicked in, was adaptable. Teams were adaptable, the workforce was, everything changed. But like your own physical immune system, if that's under pressure for a long period of time, it's going to be compromised. Physically, with our physical immune systems, we become ill. But with regards to our psychological immune systems, this is where then mental health problems start to appear, because we're constantly being put under that pressure. And with this in mind, then, we need a new style of leadership. We need to think outside the box, excuse me, and think of a different type of leadership. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's taught us that leadership matters, and the way you lead as well matters. And I think that's been very apparent in saying, you know, I've said throughout this whole thing that the whole pandemic has really highlighted people's true colours, and especially leaders. And I put up here a quote from, this is the father of modern management, Peter Drucker, and he says, the greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, it's to act with yesterday's logic. So this is where this comes in, that we have to think of things in a different way. We are working with people who basically have gone through trauma as leaders, as you all have yourselves. So it's, if you keep doing the same thing in the same way, you're going to get the same results, but things are totally different. So we have to change the way we look at things. And this is where authentic leadership comes in. And I truly believe that this is what we need. This is the solution. It's new times and we need a new way. And authentic leadership, it is all about building trust and compassion. And through this leadership style, there's a great opportunity here to create a deeper and more meaningful workplace culture. So there's a positive here that out of all the negativity that's happened and the pressure that's happened, there's something positive that we can take from this and creating a different culture. And with this deeper, meaningful, trustworthy, compassionate culture in your business or in your organization, it results then in increased focus, engagement, and productivity of your staff. So there's a really positive slant on this. So let me just kind of, here we go. It's definitely time for change. We're quite adaptable for change now, but this is, you know, we need to up our game for the next level and the next phase of change. So I just want to highlight a couple of qualities here of authentic leaders. And I suppose authentic leadership, you could say, you could describe as a genuine, leaders being genuine, but also being true to themselves. And this is where being authentic, being your true self. And that's where the work that I do is very much about helping people be true to themselves, because there's so much pressure and there's so much stress that's around that. As you lead, people need you to be yourself, to be that true leader. And so some of the qualities of authentic leaders I've put up there is, being present with whole awareness. And what that means is, in a situation, of taking in the whole situation of everything that's around you. To lead with heart. And what that means is about having compassion. It's about caring. And a lot of these words may sound quite soft or fluffy, but they're not in these times. These are really unusual times. And this is the way that we need to lead. Because people are going through so much, it's about having that human connection. The other one there is demonstrating self-discipline. And as Paul had mentioned at the outset, as leaders, it's about having the abilities and putting in place the abilities for your own well-being and having the discipline to do that, to manage your emotions. This is where the emotional intelligence comes in, about being aware of your own emotions, being aware of your own thought patterns and managing them in the best way that you can, so that you can manage others as well. Suspension and letting go. Now, what I mean by that is about being in a situation and being actively involved in or aware of a situation, but not getting caught up in it. So this is where having that emotional intelligence, that levelness, without being aware of what's happening in a certain situation, but not getting caught up in it. And then also we have there the established connected relationships. This is where it all comes down to communication and the connection that you have with people. And again, with your teams, it's so important the way that you lead with the teams, the varied working ways, that it's so important to have that clear line of communication and to enable that connectedness. So why me? Why should I tell you all about this? Who am I to tell you all this? Well, here's a little diagram that kind of, I suppose, explains a little about me, in that I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to personal development. My background's in psychology and I worked in mental health for a very long time. And in 2005, I retrained into coaching. And coaching, this is amazing. It brings everything that I've done to that point to realize. And coaching is all about helping people be the best version of themselves. It's about being true to themselves. And my style of coaching is about helping people be true to themselves and understand their values, understand how they work. And it's so important in the world that we live in today that, now people are accepting what personal development about the power of the individual and how you can manage yourself. But when I started back in 2005, 2006, or 2006, 2007, people didn't really know what coaching was. And I'm just going to show you a little image here, and you'll be wondering what that is about, but it's a hen party. And the reason I put that up is that every week I would get phone calls about my business, but it would be, can you price me a coach to Letterkenny for a hen party? And so it's no joke, nobody was aware of what coaching was about. Whereas now I never get those calls. Now people recognize that coaching is a really important part of working with teams in the workplace and the individual. So that brings me then to my mission. Now, this is a mission I've been banging on about for years, is to slow the world down. Now, every talk I give, I talk about slowing the world down. And little did I know that there would be a pandemic, which I hope I didn't bring on, but the idea that we can slow the world down. And what I mean by that is slowing it down nanosecond by nanosecond. And if we slow ourselves down, that gives us an opportunity to become grounded, to become aware of what's happening in each moment, and in managing ourselves as we lead and as we manage others. And one of the techniques that I found that was really good in helping my mission was mindfulness. And I came to mindfulness about 20 years ago when I practiced it myself, obviously. And it is something that I find back when I started learning mindfulness, it was a bit sort of airy-fairy, or it wasn't accepted. But I'm so glad to see now that it has been accepted into mainstream, and especially in the workplace, and especially as a form of leadership. So what is mindfulness? I better explain a little bit about what mindfulness is. And I think the best place to start is to tell you what it's not. Okay. So, and also the fact that mindfulness is an aspect of authentic leadership. And this is the aspect that I focus on. So to explain to you what it's not. So it's not about emptying your head of thoughts. It's not, and this is the biggest misconception. A lot of people feel that mindfulness, oh, I'm having too many thoughts, so I mustn't be doing it right. But it's definitely not. It's about observing your thoughts. It's not about not having negative emotions. So it is about having every emotion, but being aware of every emotion. It's not about spacing out and escaping. It's not about being blissed out all the time and escaping. If anything, it's the opposite of that. It's not religious. It came from the Buddhist tradition, but the mindfulness that I teach is practical mindfulness. So it's very much about how you can incorporate it into everyday life. No sitting on the floor cross-legged in your yoga gear. Again, the mindfulness that I do is short meditations, short exercises. And it's not just about attention. Mindfulness is also about deepening the experience in that moment. And as a leader, it's important to recognize that of what is actually happening in a moment, of being aware and taking everything in. The final one there that it's not is a quick fix. Unfortunately, mindfulness is a skill. And how do we perfect a skill? Is with practice. So it's something that we practice often and regularly in order to perfect it, because what we're doing is we're creating different neural pathways in our mind. It's a different way of thinking. So what is mindfulness then? So it's observing your life as it happens. It's observing things as they happen. It's not preempting them. It's not thinking back to the past. It's observing as things actually happen and taking things on as they happen. It's accepting your current situation without judgment or struggle. So acceptance is a huge part of practical mindfulness. Accepting how things are. It's a very liberating thing to be able to do, but it takes practice. It's allowing your feelings to exist without them driving your actions. And we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail in a minute. So every emotion, every thought that we have is there for a reason. So it's not about denying negative thoughts or negative emotions. It's about understanding them more and not letting the emotions or feelings drive your actions. Noticing thoughts as they arise without the need to buy into them. I mentioned that earlier. And living more consciously, choosing where your focus rests. A great leader of mindfulness in the West is John Kabat-Zinn. And this is his definition of mindfulness. It means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So it's very much choosing where your attention goes with purpose, being in the present moment and not having judgment about that. So I don't know if there's any questions yet, but what I want to do, I'm aware I'm talking too much now. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an exercise. We're going to do a mindfulness exercise. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing the screen. So I can just check that you're all not looking at your phones, those who haven't got their cameras. Okay, so we're going to do this exercise and I'm going to guide you through this exercise. Just be open. What we're going to do is the STOP practice, and STOP is an acronym. S is for stop, obviously. T is to take a few deep breaths. O is to observe. And P is to proceed. So I'm going to guide you through this exercise. What I want you to do is to sit comfortably. John Kabat-Zinn always talks about sitting with dignity. And basically it means it's with good posture, because this is where, you know, it's about our awareness, deeper awareness. And if we're kind of slouched down and sleepy or whatever, we're not being aware. Okay. So it's about sitting with good posture, feet firmly on the ground. Okay. I'll guide you through this exercise. Just be open to it. Just observe your thoughts without the need to get caught into them. Your mind will keep buzzing around. You'll be thinking about all sorts of things, maybe not anything that we're covering here. And at the end of the exercise, I'm just going to ring a bell. And that's the signal to end. Okay? So just allow yourselves to settle as we start the stop practice. Okay? And of course, you can close your eyes in this exercise. So this is your invitation to stop. To stop what you're doing right now. You're giving yourself permission to pause. And just to be and sit with whatever is with you in this moment. So I want you to take a few deep breaths now. So breathing deeply in and out through your nose. And just breathing in easily and effortlessly. And then breathing out again. I just want to find the natural rhythm of your breathing and just observe it. As you breathe in, just taking in all that positive, energizing oxygen. And then as you breathe out, just allowing your body to soften and let go a little. And just noticing just how with each breath, you're allowing your body to soften and just let go a little bit more. As long as you're here with the breath right now, just allow your body to settle into its natural rhythm of breathing, and whatever that might be for you at this moment. Breathing in and sensing the breath coming into your body. And then breathing out and sensing the breath leave your body. Just allowing the body to naturally take the breath it needs. And its natural rhythm of being alive. I want you to shift to the O of our practice, and that's observe. So just begin to observe your body now. So just noticing if there's any tension or tightness anywhere. And always remember to include the face, forehead, and the jaw, because we hold a lot of tension there. But just noticing any tightness or tension anywhere in your body. And maybe breathing into it. Wherever you feel that tightness, just breathe into it, and then as you breathe out, allow it to soften. And you may even want to mindfully adjust your body by shrugging your shoulders or rolling your neck or stretching. I want you to tune in to your emotions, how you're feeling emotionally right now. So it's just labeling the emotions. So if there's a sense of calm or ease, maybe there's restlessness, irritation, frustration, irritation. Or you could just be feeling a bit neutral about things. Whatever's there, just see if you can be aware of it without any judgment. And just notice how it feels physically in the body. So noticing how these emotions feel physically in your body. So just continue to observe yourself physically and emotionally in this moment. Just letting things be. And also being aware now of your mind, just observing your mind. Noticing if it seems distracted or cluttered, or if it seems like it's settling into being here in this moment. Either way is okay, there's no right or wrong. The O of observe is just to allow us to be aware of the experience in the moment. Physically, emotionally, and mentally. Actually, the moment that you notice that your mind's off in a dander, it's very distracted or thinking about something else, that's actually the moment that you're being present, because you've become the observer. You've noticed. So just settling in. Being aware of the fullness of the moment physically and emotionally, and just letting it be. In a moment, then we'll come to the last part of the practice, and that's the P of stop, which is proceed. So as we proceed, I want you to ask yourself the question, what's most important for me to pay attention to right now? And just listen to the answer that bubbles up for you. You could ask yourself, what am I needing right now? What's most important for me to pay attention to right now? And then you can proceed with that after the session. We're bringing this practice to a close now. Always remembering the importance to stop and pause and take that time out. This is a great act of self-care and compassion. So just acknowledging that you've taken that time. Okay, folks. So can I ask you, did anybody's mind wander in that exercise? You give me the thumbs up, or if you want to say, or anybody's mind wander? Mine did, yeah, absolutely. And if you notice that your mind wandered, were you able to bring it back to the instruction, to the moment? Yeah, some of you were, yeah. Okay. So that simple act of noticing that your mind has wandered and bringing it back to the present is that's what our mindfulness practice is about. So it is a practice, and it is about that. It's not about, it's noticing if some of you may not have been able to settle at all, and that's perfectly natural as well. because this is a habit. This is about creating a new habit. But it's noticing that your mind can wander and go to all sorts of places. But it's the need, remember back to what we said about authentic leadership, noticing that, noticing that you don't have to get caught up in the thoughts. Okay. So, what's that got to do with authentic leadership? How can that exercise, how can that be incorporated into everyday life and how you lead others and how you lead yourself? Well, I want to introduce you to the idea of the vicious circle. Okay. And this idea is it's not what happens to us, it's about what responds, or how we respond to what happens to us. Okay. And this is really, really important as you manage, as you're managing as you're leading others. Often we can get into a situation where if we're not still, if we're not calm, if we're not measured, we can react to a situation that maybe doesn't need a reaction. So let me introduce you to this idea. So there's you in the middle, and we have our thinking, feeling, physical feelings, and behaviors. Okay. So if I give you an example, so say you're managing a team, or there's somebody in your workplace and they're being very argumentative, aggressive, difficult. It's just really, really difficult. Okay. So if we look at some of the thoughts that might come into your mind, especially if you're feeling very stressed and you're really feeling a bit overwhelmed with it. So some of the negative thinking that may come into your mind would be that, what the hell are they, what's going on with them? They're just being obstructive. They're being difficult. They're being awkward. So your thinking could follow that line of pattern. Okay. Now, if you're thinking that way, how are you going to feel? You're going to feel frustrated. What emotions are you going to feel? You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel annoyed. You're going to feel irritated. You're going to feel angry. There's going to be real emotions there that you're going to be feeling, okay, because you're thinking a certain way in reaction to this particular person. Physically, how's that going to impact? And this is where our bodies talk to us, but a lot of the time we don't listen to our bodies. So when we did that stop practice, it's tuning into the body and noticing where you feel the tension. So if we're angry, if we're upset, if we're anxious, we can feel it physically in our body. And by tuning into that, our mindfulness practice can tune into that. We can understand and get more of a handle and be more aware of it. Leading on then to the behaviors. So physically, you may feel angry with this your heart racing. You may feel, as you interact with this person, you may be sweating, real physical reactions in your body. How that impacts the behavior, you may lash out. You may lose it because you're under a lot of pressure yourself. And how is that going to feed into the thinking? Is it going to help the thinking? I don't think so. I think it's going to create the vicious circle. And this is what our mindfulness practice helps us do, is taking each of those areas to be more aware of what we're thinking in a particular moment, what we're feeling, physically what's happening, and our behaviors and how they impact on our actions and on how we feel. So if we were to look at that at a different way, okay, and this is where the pause comes in, and this is where my mission to slow the world down comes in. So if you're to pause, take in the situation, this person's been very angry, obstructive. Your thinking could be, I wonder what's going on with them. Is there something behind this? Are they being very stressed? This must be something else. Or it could be something else. The feeling, if you're thinking that way, you may feel a little bit calmer. You may feel a bit more inquisitive, curious to understand what's going on. Physically, again, you may feel calmer, your heart rate down, your breathing easier. Even physically, your posture would be different. And the behaviors, you may, in that interaction, you may be able to look at the situation and talk to the person, take the person aside and say what's going on. And, there may be something behind it. There may not be. It may just be the person is being difficult and obstructive, but It's about how you manage yourself and managing others. And that's where this vicious circle is really important. And our mindfulness practice can help us understand and deepen what's happening. And this is the emotional intelligence of knowing, with regards to our authentic leadership, of knowing what's happening with our thoughts, how we feel, physically how we feel, and what we're doing, and how that impacts and how we manage others. Okay. William Shakespeare, there's a great quote, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And this is where our thinking is so powerful. And as a leader, it's important to have the right mindset and have the right line of thinking. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of why we would want to be mindful, why we would want to lead in a different way. It's about connecting with ourselves. It's about understanding ourselves better to understand others. And when I said about leadership, authentic leadership, about being genuine and true to yourself, there's nothing worse than a leader who is false, who's trying to be something they're not. And I think we would all agree with that. And these really crazy times, it's important to recognize that vulnerability is okay. I've often said to people that I'm coaching, you know, and they're managing teams, is that, you know, admit that you're struggling, admit that you don't have all the answers, because that shows a compassionate leader. That shows someone who's been true to themselves. And when we talk about compassion, it's important to recognize that compassion for others has to start with yourself. Okay, so you have to start with understanding that to lead in a different way, you have to have compassion for yourselves. Okay, so I'm not going to let you go. I know I'm talking too much, but you will get your opportunity to talk. But what we're going to do now is a final short 3-minute mindfulness exercise. Okay, it's only 3 minutes long. So surely you can pause for 3 minutes now that you've already had a practice. So I'll keep that shared screen. So allow yourselves to settle again for this 3 minutes of mindfulness. Again, sitting comfortably with good posture. Feet firmly on the ground. And just allow yourselves to settle. And now I want you to ask yourself, what is here in this moment? What is here? So what thoughts are going through your mind? What emotions are you feeling? And what sensations are you aware of in your body? What is here? Notice your thoughts, your emotions, and sensations in your body. Now I want you to bring your attention to your breath again. Just focus on your breath and notice where your awareness of your breath is in your body. You may feel it in your chest, the rise and fall of your stomach, or it may be in your nose as the air flows in and out of your nostrils. Just bring your attention to your breath and just notice it. Now I want you to expand your awareness to the rest of your body. Expand that awareness to the whole of your body and just notice. Expand your awareness to the surroundings around you, to the room that you're in. Expand your awareness to your surroundings. And further expand your awareness to outside of the room. And beyond. And notice this awareness, this expanded awareness. And notice what you feel about this expanded awareness. And know that you have this expanded awareness with you all the time. Okay, 3 minutes. A lot of people say, I have no time to stop, to pause. I have no time to do this. But if you really want to do something, you will find the time to do it. 3 minutes, you know? So this mindfulness I talk about, this practical mindfulness, it is about how to make it accessible into your everyday life. And so I want to tell you then a little bit about the course that we're doing through the Centre of Learning with the Chambers Learning Centre. And this course that's coming up, if you feel that, you know, we're trying to get a lot into that short space of time there today to try and explain to you, give a little bit of a taste for what, you know, why we need to be authentic, why we need a different way of leadership. And this authentic leadership course, it's all about you. It's all about developing your mindfulness practice and how you can incorporate it into everyday life and work. It's practical. So there are exercises that we do, practical mindfulness exercises, which you're expected to practice outside of the sessions. It's 1 hour every week for 6 weeks, starting on the 15th of September. And it's online, so it's accessible for everybody, which is wonderful. Support's given in between the sessions. You're given all recordings, all the mindfulness recordings. There's also an opportunity, since the beginning of lockdown, I've been running drop-in mindfulness sessions for 30 minutes, 4 times a week. So you access those as well. And you're expected to attend all the exercises. In each sessions, each week, we cover a different aspect. There's a different focus each week. So it's about developing and deepening your mindfulness practice to help you be more compassionate and more authentic leader. I'm sure if there's any questions now, well, because I hear the Guildhall, I'm right beside the Guildhall, and it's 1:45, and I did say we would finish at 1:45, and I've just heard the Guildhall, so that's my opportunity to pause and let you get an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. Yes.
Maybe Helen, I could kick off. Maybe I know that Niall has put a question there
Yes.
on the text as well. But look, thanks. It was great to take the 3 minutes out. I think it was 6 minutes in total. It felt like a lifetime actually. When you're sitting down there trying to stay quiet and relax and everything, you just realize how busy everything is around you and your mind and everything else. But I really found it really useful. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things you touched on there, I suppose you have to kind of understand your own potential before you maybe can see it in others. Does that make sense? That you can give your time to say, okay, you have to be honest with yourself as well, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And then you, as you say, be honest enough to let them be seen, you know, don't hide them. But also that gives you an understanding of how to see it in other people and get the best out of them. Is there something in that? You have to be kind of honest with yourself to start.
Absolutely. And that's being authentic, your authentic self. And you know, I think when we try to be something that we're not, or we're trying to cover up, and that it's been very difficult to navigate these recent times. You know, it's but one thing that's come out is a lot of people have trusted their instinct, they've trusted their gut. They've kind of, you know, true leaders just, you know, think, right, okay, outside the box, and they, you know. So I think it's important to listen, and that's where that stillness as well of listening, and that stop practice is, you know, where does your attention need to be? You know, often we're working so fast, we're distracted so much, we don't actually pause to think, where does our attention need to be? But absolutely, yeah, it is about being true to yourself and acknowledging that. Niall, you mentioned there about the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's like, yeah, absolutely. It's not what happens to us, it's how we respond to it. But it's been transferred then into the more, into a working environment and into the workplace. Any other questions?
Helen, can I maybe ask a question? In terms of other people that have attended the mindfulness, I know you've maybe ran this a few times before. What have they said were their kind of main takeaways or the main learning they got out of the 6-week session?
Yes, because this is we've run it through the chamber 2 or 3 times before, I think, as well. And the big thing was that people were saying about managing themselves and not reacting. It's the simplest things, you know, not being able to manage their emotions and manage their thinking has given them space that they don't react in situations. They're calmer. And then the impact of that on their team has been huge. And it's also that from this course, it's not just the individual impact, you know, what you experience, but it's the things that people share with their teams as well, some of the learning that can be shared with their teams as well. Yeah. Thanks, Julie.
It certainly sounds, Helen, like a thing that if you're preparing yourself for your, you know, your business reopening, now most are reopening, but I mean, it's in a constant flexibility. We could be going to a second lockdown and things like that. So I guess you have to kind of look at your management skills and say, you know, if there's any way through this type of exercise that you can improve your overall management skills, because you're going to be stretched. As you say, people are working from home, maybe not from home, blended working, a lot of stresses for families that may not have been apparent before that are being sucked into the workplace now, you know, people who are cocooning, parents and grandparents, childcare. I mean, there's so many things that maybe as a manager you might have avoided before because they were kind of being looked after and you didn't really worry about them. But now they're center stage here, and people are talking about these things now, whereas they weren't maybe before. Yeah. So I guess your skills as a manager are definitely being broadened. There's a wider spectrum, I would have thought, than like, you know, the top-down management. That's gone. I think this is like, you really have to have a couple of different antennae in your management set, in your toolbox, I think, to get by.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, the big thing is obviously the mental health of people. I mean, this is a trauma that's happened, and trauma with a capital T and with a little t as well. So that the ripple effect with people, it's ongoing. This is not, you know, as we've gone through the whole pandemic, it's people, as I said, about that psychological immune system kicks into place, but it's the long-term impact of that. So it is important as a leader and as a manager to see that and to acknowledge that, not just for yourself, but also for your team, to recognize and, as I say, lead with heart, to have that compassion, but being realistic as well. And the impact of this is the flip side of it, as it said at the outset, is there's a really positive here, that it could create a whole different culture within an organization or business, a culture that has deeper understanding and more connection. And in the long run, then that is going to get productivity out of staff. There's going to be more effectiveness. So it's a win-win situation. But it's something that I have believed in for a very long time, but the whole pandemic issue has just kind of brought this to the fore. It's sort of like, it's almost like, you know, if you don't listen, the universe will just fire something at you. And so it's kind of now realizing, okay, we really do need to look at things in a different way. Definitely need to think. And so it's a positive thing, I think.
I think as well, like leaders, a lot of teams are looking to leaders to make decisions, because nobody's ever navigated through this, and that can be stifling itself. And I suppose in some ways, in answer to Julie's question, I've worked with you before as I would have been a coaching client of yours, Helen. And what I found useful was your ability to take what would be perceived as a complex situation and provide kind of clarity and move things towards a simplified action. I know we would have discussed kind of T-junction decision making and things like that. So I think that's where leadership is going to come in, the ability to make decisions without knowing the overall outcome, the end point, because nobody knows the end point.
Absolutely. And it's a really good point, Eamon, that the fact that, to often leaders, the thought was to have that vision, the big picture vision. And when the big picture looks a bit grim, I always say you have to focus on the small picture, and that's the T-junction, taking it step by step. And that's the thing as a leader now, it is about responding to a situation without knowing the whole bigger picture, and that's what this whole situation has shown us, and feeling confident about that and feeling okay about that. Yeah, absolutely, Eamon. Thank you. Anybody else, any burning questions? Oh.
Helen, just where you talk about slowing the world down in nanoseconds, I take it that you're still not saying that we should have the ability to move gears regardless. There is a danger of being sucked into a surreal world either, a world where, I read a book there, and the first sentence on it was, beware of authors selling joy and happiness. And there is a danger that the likes of mindfulness overused could suck you into a surreal world. Would that be fair? I don't mean to be.
No, good question, because actually that is probably one of the myths as well about mindfulness. It is about that serenity, but it's not. It's actually sitting comfortably with the uncomfortable as well. So it's like in those exercises that we did there, even noticing, God, I'm really irritated here, or I have that appointment, will I get off here? It's noticing all the negative emotions as well and sitting with them. So it is about being very aware in the moment, positive and negative, but not getting hooked up in the positive or the blissed feeling either. Because if I often say to people in the drop-in sessions, people can vary from day to day, or session to session. So if you have a really kind of lovely 3-minute mindfulness and it's really, oh yeah, that was really good, and you have an expectation, then the next time you go for that, you're going to be disappointed. So it's about unhooking from the positive as well, if you know what I mean. So it's about the flow, I suppose, and the observation that it's not all good, it's not all bad. Things change. It's about noticing and observing the changes that happen. So there's not. Some people do say I'm kind of quite calm, but it's the duck's feet going underneath as well. So it's not about the more that you practice this that you would just get into that place of unless you're in the top of a mountain and in a retreat somewhere away. What I'm really adamant about is how we can incorporate this into everyday life, and some of the exercises that we do in the course are the simplest things but have the hugest impact, and one of the things is about your breath. We talk a lot, or we did in the exercise there, about your breath, and our breath is a great indicator of what's happening within us. So when you can observe your breath and notice that it's fast, it's shallow, then that's the thing. Okay, I need to slow it down. I need to pause, to regulate your breath again.